coming this afternoon. I'm very excited for our presentation, and I hope that you all are as well. We are going to be considering the role of restorative justice and peace education as part of a contributing process to building a sustainable peace. I'm Professor David Anderson Hooker. I'm filling in my colleague, Dr. George Lopez, who was originally scheduled to chair the program, was unable to come. He's having some physical challenges that make it hard for him to fly, so he sends apologies, and I've been asked to chair our panel this afternoon. I'm very excited to do that. There are biographical information on each of the speakers, so I won't spend much time introducing them, but in the order in which we will speak, Dr. Yi, Professor Kim, Professor Mirza, and then Professor Byung will speak. Our conversation is really looking at a variety of ways to consider peace education. And peace education, because peace is a very interdisciplinary process and an interdisciplinary subject, peace education, as you can imagine, is also a very interdisciplinary approach. And so there will be historians and anthropologists and religious scholars. And what's not here on the panel, but you can also have on a panel about peace education, you could have medical ethicists, and you could have nuclear biologists, and you could have economists as well. And so we're taking a variety of approaches to considering peace and also wanting to think about the role that restorative justice may play in this peace education process. And so after each of our speakers will present for a few minutes, and I've been given the authority of the bell. I like this, the authority of the bell, so that I can ring the bell at certain points. But after each of our speakers speaks for a few minutes, we'll have some summary comments, and then we'll also invite some question and participation from those of you who are here. Okay? And so we'll begin right away with Dr. Yi.
Thank you. When I was asked to prepare my presentation, I have to prepare some peace research as a whole. As I heard from Dr. Hooker, he's from university, I think Notre Dame University. That's why he emphasizes the peace education. But I'm in Jeju Peace Institution. We were working for the government side and working on some government policy. That's what I wanted to focusing something little from your emphasis. But before my presentation, I want to discuss the entire big picture of a Korean society. I mean the generation themes. When I was a little boy in 1960s and 70s, in Korean society, there is a big themes which dominated the entire society. Whenever you raise that topic, nobody is supposed to be silent, shut up, because that is a predominantly important issue. For example, in 60s and 70s, economic development for better life. That's why the President of Park, not just Lady Park, her father Park, President Park, emphasized the economic development. Whenever he emphasized the economic development, everybody shut the mouth up. And then that enables him dictatorship on Korean politics. And after him, during the 1980s, we face democratic activities, which means democracy means not the procedural democracy, which is anti-dictatorship activist movement led by college students. And then whenever students mobilize the general support for democratization, and then nobody keep silent. Even they can justify violence. With the violent activist movement against the dictator government, it was justifiable and reasonable activity against dictatorship. And the good time came in 90s. Peace. That's a big topic. When the 1990s came, the peace dominated entire society. And then later on, after the year 2000, we emphasize ecology, life, better environment issue dominate entire society. With the reason I wanted to talk about this kind of big trend in the Korean society, we experienced this kind of big transformation. But the peace has been emphasized for decades during the 1990s, but these days I'm not quite sure how the Koreans think about peace. But let me begin the peace studies perspectives. In Western perspectives, peace study is focusing on, in this sense, Western means American perspectives. They just emphasizing conflict resolution and how to resolve the conflictual situation around the world. And in order for that, we have to adopt a mediation and the security studies. The academia emphasizes the interdisciplinary nature of peace studies, as Dr. Hooker introduced in his opening remarks. And then the peace study consists of three major divisions, such as peace research, which I talk about the scientific investigation of peace based on statistical analysis, gathering data of each and every case. As a unit of analysis, conflict is your case. And they gather the whole data and analyze it with a statistical method. And then you can get some logic, why this conflict occurred and how to resolve this. And the second one, obviously, peace education, as professors emphasize then, teaching and delivering the idea for peace. And then finally, peace activism. I have some problem with this peace activism in East Asia. First of all, American tradition of peace study has emphasized peace research with the scientific investigation, like statistical analysis of event count data. These days, with the scientific AI methodology, we can gather whole newspaper report, and we coded it with a machine-readable data set and analyze it. Not only this militarized interstate conflict, even verbal conflict can be our research topic and analyze it. For example, what if the Chairman Kim Jong-un made some rough verbal threat toward the United States? You can add up, accumulate that kind of data, and you can analyze it with the time series methodology. That is the beauty of peace science and peace research. Let's say there are a whole lot of different kind of data, correlates of war data, and these days a whole lot of different event count data. That is what I studied in the United States. But another problem, as Johann Galtung, he is commemorated as our founding father of peace study. But he emphasized justice did not absence of conflict. He emphasized the presence of justice. That is, in Korean or East Asian society, pretty much accept the peace not as an absence of conflict. They just valued the presence of justice, at least in this country and East Asia. Let me tell you, with the peace activism as a third branch of peace research, in East Asia, government and the civil society utilize the concept of peace and peace research. Let me say, in Japan, peace study means non-nuclear activism at the civilian and academic and even at government level. When people in Japan discuss peace, it focuses on the victimization of Japanese innocent people, through the dropping of an atomic bomb by the United States during the World War II. When I visited the Hiroshima Peace Research Institute and the Hiroshima Peace Park, they always think peace means no nuke. We are victims of atomic bomb at the first time in the history. That makes me pretty uneasy. Why you just focusing on no nuke activism as peace? And then they just, I'm not quite sure you know about the jus ad bellum or jus in bellum, means justice of war and justice in war. They just, the Japanese peace study community only emphasized the justice in war, not justice of war. I asked them, who initiated the war? Who bombed the Pearl Harbor, Hawaii first? Their answer was, don't ask me that kind of question. But my people victimized. They were killed since they were innocent civilian, but indiscriminately United States dropped the atomic bomb and they were killed. Well, probably my question makes them uneasy, but their response also makes me uneasy in a sense that is the Asian peace study community. Please think more about what is peace. Now let me move to the Korean cases. Peace study in Korea basically means not the absence of a conflict. That's the main focus. They just want to main focus on justice, presence of justice. They wanted to kind of pursue justice in real society. However, the peace research in academia basically narrowed down its scope to inter-Korean issues, like North Korea. But the problem is they are focusing quite a narrow. First topic is reunification with the adjective peaceful reunification. 2 minutes. Wow. Okay. Oh, well, yeah. I needed some more minute though, but anyway. Another one is in peace study in Korean politics is since they always are focusing on social justices, it combined with the social activism. Let's say in Jeju case, a lot of social activists mobilize the general public and in order to oppose the government project in this country, like naval bases in this part of island. That is also makes me uneasy, as much as what I experienced in Japanese peace researchers, whether the no-nuke cases. The problem here, everybody adopted the term peace on their own political causes and the probably not personal, but individual group interest. That is a problem of peace studies in East Asia, which is we miss the big picture, how to remove the conflictual situation, how to resolve the conflict. That's supposed to be our first goal. That is my presentation, and I finish here. If you give me another minute, I will tell the next part later on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ji-Eun Kim, and I'm delighted to speak here for the panel as well. For the brief time I have today, I'll be focusing on restorative justice in the context of Korea. Is this one? Okay. In the context of Korea, especially focusing on the role and the significance of official state apologies, which I've been working on for some time. Now, for the past 7 decades or so, as Professor Dr. Lee has quite well summarized, we have up and downs of peace activism, and Asia actually, as a region, experienced a whole lot of miraculous economic development as well as democratic transitions. Despite these significant developments, many countries and societies yet face the challenges of healing the wounds from the past. And these wounds kind of date back to the dark histories of colonialism, wars, political oppression, and whatnot. And from that perspective, restorative justice suggests a number of potential opportunities for societies to heal and reconcile with one another, and especially between perpetrators, often the states themselves, with survivors and victims. Now, searching for justice in the face of these state atrocities, such as genocides, massacres, political oppression, and so on, can mean so many things. And we have an expert of restorative justice here, Professor David Hooker, as well. But one can think of holding perpetrators accountable for their culpability by, criminal prosecutions, or we can provide amnesty, some would argue, in order to look for further stability in the future. Or we can provide reparative measures, both symbolic ones like official state apologies as well as monetary compensations. Or one can actively seek truth by corroborating what has really happened in the past. The list goes on and on. Now, the essence of restorative justice is that the primary focus is in order to heal the wounds of the victims and kind of confirm the moral standing of these victims. So it integrates perpetrators back into the society, and also it really confirms the moral standing, really reconstructs the moral foundation of a society, which from a holistic perspective, it's challenging, but also, in a way, closer to the objective of restoring justice and looking for stable peace in the future. Now, viewed this way, state apologies in which government officials, political executives officially acknowledge government culpability of their past wrongs constitute a crucial element, I argue, in reconciliatory efforts. Now, if they're not done well, they can actually harm the reconciliatory processes, so we should be careful. But in many ways, in many aspects, official statements acknowledging their responsibility would be important and cannot be underestimated. Collective apologies contribute to post-conflict justice as they seek to address individual and societal wounds, and they do so by, again, confirming the moral standing of the very victims who have been harmed by these damaged moral foundations. Now, I argue in my research and throughout my presentation today that official apologies should be successful official apology should be understood from the victim's perspective, and that the success or failure of state official apologies should depend on how well they are received, not based on whether they were given in the first place or not. Now, from the recipient's perspective, survivors, families of victims, communities, we should be, measuring how they were well contributing to this reconciliatory efforts. Now, that being said, it is worthwhile to note here or focus here on two significant state apologies in the context of Jeju, South Korea. President Roh Moo-hyun's apology and recent President Moon Jae-in's apology on the Jeju April 3rd events here, 2 months ago. These two state apologies really mark an important turning point in Korean history. We actually have separate panels, and we have expert here again, Professor Byung Jung-hwan, on April 3rd events. So I won't go in all the details of what has happened in the past, but for those who are unfamiliar with what is Jeju April 3rd events, it's one of the tragic moments in Korean history besides the Korean War. Approximately 30,000 people have been killed, which compose about 10% of the Jeju population back at that time. These people were killed due to both communist armed uprisings as well as counterinsurgency actions, but the conflict was in general asymmetric. 80% of the reported deaths were civilians. And these victims were killed by anti-guerrilla expeditions. And excessive counterinsurgency strategies included systematic and indiscriminate killings, as well as civilian massacres, mass arrests, forced relocations, and more importantly, the political violence was carried out furthermore throughout the guilt by association system for the next 4 decades. So in that context, the whole arduous journey, along with peace activism after the democratization of Korea, it took very many years to come. And it wasn't until the year 2000 where we have a special law for investigating these events. And it wasn't until 55 years later, after the events, and 3 years after the investigation, that President Roh Moo-hyun formally, as a head of state, acknowledges state involvement of these killings. So President Roh Moo-hyun's apology during his visit to Jeju Peace Forum, which is the predecessor of the event that we're all here for today, are indeed marked a watershed moment. And when I, visited survivors and families of victims 2 years ago, everyone recalled, most of them actually recalled their emotions back then, being hopeful, relieved, satisfied, deeply moved, overwhelmed, and some, of course, mentioned the very challenges of describing their emotions because it was such an overwhelming event. Now, the positive reception happened regardless of the lack and absence of more concrete measures such as reparations and compensations, which is notable. And this is kind of a debate between scholars where reparations should be given along with official acknowledgments and how that would affect. But in this case, many people had hope for future follow-up and policy developments after the apology. So despite the lack of them, the apology itself was generally well received. Now, 13 years, fast forward 13 years later, we had kind of a setback of 2 conservative administrations. And back in 2 years ago, when I talked to a number of people, many expressed their dissatisfaction regardless of their political orientation, regardless of their party affiliation, because you see a number of setbacks in terms of government official approach to the tragedy, as well as both presidents' absences and annual commemoration events and so on. So in a way, President Moon Jae-in's apology and promising statement 2 months ago is kind of a reconfirmation of coming back to the original point of how we should really reconcile between the state and also perhaps the divided community in Jeju and as well as Korea in a wider context. So to briefly conclude, and I can come back to the meanings and, what are really important elements of an apology. To briefly conclude, it is really important to note that the role of state official apology is an important stepping stone, and it should not be, and does not close the books. A journey to restore justice after such large-scale atrocities is a long one, and we should all acknowledge the limitations and the challenges of that. And, in order to dismiss the common accusation of an apology being simply a cheap talk, there should be some follow-up measures, always accompanied by other continuous reparative policies and signs and promises of change, as well as peace education and history education. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mahan Mirza. I'm a professor of the practice at the University of Notre Dame in the United States, a colleague of Professor David Hooker. It's my pleasure to be here in Korea. Thank you to the organizers for hosting this panel. It's my first time in Korea. Originally, I'm from Pakistan. And just talking about apologies, when I was transferring from the main airport to my next flight, there was an apology on the loudspeaker. and they said, we're sorry, the flight is going to be delayed because the next incoming flight is late, so we have to wait for the passengers. And then I found out that it was delayed by 5 minutes, which was really a shock to me that they were apologizing for that, because that would be considered right on time in most other parts of the world. So it's really fascinating and a privilege to see how well Korea has developed. In Pakistan, when we're taught Pakistan studies, we're told that when we gained freedom around, or independence around the middle of the last century, that we developed a five-year plans for development. And then Korea developed its 5-year plans modeled on Pakistan's plans. And now look where Korea is, and look where Pakistan is. So we have another story. I don't know if this is historically accurate, but it's told amongst our circles. Whether it's legendary or not, it's telling. When one of the leaders of Korea in the last century visited Pakistan, and the Pakistanis then asked the Koreans for advice on, how to be successful and how to develop society and make progress. And they were told, how does one advise a people who believe life begins after death? So this was a really damning critique of religion, and it doesn't have to be that way, but theologies can become that way. And so my presentation is on a project that we're working on to advance theological and scientific literacy amongst graduates of madrasas, which are religious seminaries, schools of formation of scholars in India and Pakistan. With over 500 million Muslims, South Asia is the largest cultural bloc of Muslims in the world. Muslim societies have traditionally considered scholars, known as ulama, the custodians of divine knowledge. They are the locus of authority, performing religious rites for the fulfillment of individual and communal obligations to God, dispensing legal opinions, providing ethical advice, and extending spiritual support in times of crises as well as in everyday life. Over the past 2 centuries, the authority of the ulama, the scholars, has steadily eroded. The resulting free-for-all has left Muslim societies with a plethora of disorganized opinions and movements ranging from liberal and progressive to conservative and fanatical. Although every vibrant tradition is internally contested, full of inner tensions and even contradictions, these contestations should contribute toward a healthy culture when the tensions can be mediated by functioning institutions. The Madrasah was one such institution in the heyday of Islamic civilization, playing a stabilizing role through the formation of a scholarly elite that performed religious, state, and civic functions. Madrasas today continue to operate in the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, all over the world, including in South Asia. Observers can intelligently disagree on whether or not these institutions offer anything of value today, or whether the future of Muslim societies lies in their reform or abolishment. In his recent book, What is a Madrasah?, Professor Ibrahim Musa of the University of Notre Dame, my colleague, argues that madrasas have both historical and symbolic value for Muslim societies, as well as tremendous intellectual sophistication that simply requires some updating. There's also many books on this. A wonderfully readable book is by John Walbridge called God and Logic in Islam, the Caliphate of Reason. It's at Indiana University. So Ibrahim Musa argues that madrasas just need some updating. To that end, himself a graduate of Indian madrasas and now a world-renowned scholar in Western academia, Professor Ibrahim Musa has been working over the past 2 years on a project to advance theological and scientific literacy in madrasa discourses in India and Pakistan. And I'm the lead faculty responsible for implementing that project. The project's primary purpose is educational, to fill identifiable gaps in the education of a select group of madrasa graduates by providing basic scientific literacy as well as conceptual tools to reimagine tradition in light of contemporary intellectual challenges. And we're going to hear more about moral imagination and its importance by our next speaker. One methodological imperative of madrasa discourses is to emphasize from the outset that participants should get used to an environment characterized by indeterminism and complexity. We do not tell anyone what the answers are, nor do we expect right or wrong answers. Our project is about asking questions. We do our best to highlight complexity wherever possible so that participants are not able to hide behind formulaic responses transmitted from generation to generation. By working through the rich history of the Islamic scholarly tradition, we emphasize that intelligent people can and do disagree all the time. If history is our guide, students should expect to arrive at different answers to the theological conundrums of our time. A natural consequence of academic literacy will be the improvement of the cultural well-being of Muslim societies by enhancing the capacity of the ulama, the scholars, to serve pluralistic societies with concern for human dignity in a multicultural world. In the remainder of these brief remarks, I'm going to focus specifically on those aspects of the project that contribute to what is known as strategic peace building. Strategic peace building, as understood and applied at Notre Dame's Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies, consists of some of the following elements: the cultivation of constructive relations, cooperation over the long run at all levels of society, connection of people and groups on the ground with policymakers. The process of peace building in any setting likely stretches across generations, so long-term commitment. And it requires bridge individuals, translators across cultures, who are genuine and trusted insiders on both sides. Madrasa discourses operates directly or indirectly at all of these levels. A key element of the project is to connect ulama with students at Notre Dame in dialogue on issues related to science, theology, and ethics. During the semester, students from Notre Dame meet with students from our madrasas online every week to discuss issues ranging from genetic engineering to the freedom of religion in society. These dialogues have resulted in transformational exchanges and even friendships, captured both anecdotally in conversation as well as in blogs and reflections, papers in writing, some of which can be read online on our website. The participants in the program are religious leaders from India and Pakistan who regularly lead ritual prayers and deliver sermons at religious services. Some are teachers in schools and universities. Others are themselves students in institutions of higher learning after the madrasa. The social functions and networks of the scholars, the ulama, require them to engage in all levels and sectors of society. One of our students delivered a speech last summer to the United Nations General Assembly in New York City on sustainable development goals of the UN, while another is participating this summer in the 38th session of the UN's Human Rights Council in Geneva. Another methodological imperative is our use of an elicitive approach in pedagogy and peace building, contrasting with a prescriptive approach that understands the training, and I'm quoting here from John Paul Lederach, understands the training event as built around the specialized knowledge of the trainer, which is taken to be both transferable and universal.
The elicitive approach understands training as a process that emerges from the already existing local body of knowledge. The adoption of an elicitive model, which builds on frames of inquiry that are embedded within the vast storehouses of the Islamic scholarly tradition, enables madrasa discourses to extend the conversations from the past to the present, leading us out from the familiar to the unfamiliar. This not only avoids the shock value of some of our provocations, it also allows us to proceed systematically, taking the familiar ground of the Islamic tradition as the intellectual journey's point of departure. The elicitive approach allows participants to build on their existing knowledge base and encourages them to make organic connections instead of struggling to assimilate what is foreign in a manner that would be both disorienting and unsettling. The elicitive approach is only possible when at least the lead facilitators or mediators on both sides have authority within their own respective communities, as well as trust and recognition from the other side. So I'm about to wrap up. Our commitment is generational, and the project is civilizational. We neither aim for nor expect quick results. So that's part of the long-term commitment. Curricular reform for madrasas has been on the table for decades, if not centuries. As Ibrahim Musa demonstrates convincingly in his book, madrasas have so far been impervious to these developments. What makes our present effort any different? Above all, perhaps technology has been the biggest game changer. The new generation of madrasa graduates is open to the world in a way that we did not expect when we entered into this project. Technology has penetrated beyond the walls of the previously impervious institution of the madrasa to touch the private lives of individuals within its hallowed walls. Students now have smartphones, access to the wonders of the World Wide Web, and even their own Facebook accounts. And when you get together in on-site intensive, they are very much into taking selfies and posting about their experiences. We have found students to be intellectually open to the world and curious in ways that the previous generation of madrasa scholars could never have been. Participants join our program because they are living and experiencing a world that their madrasa training has not prepared them for. They come with questions they are not yet able to fully articulate, or they come with questions that are being posed to them that they cannot even fully understand, let alone answer. Madrasa Discourses is but one project that, driven by the quest for knowledge and armed with the wonders of modern technology, hopes to make a positive contribution to the dream and vision of peace in Asia and beyond. Thank you all for your attention. I look forward to our discussion.
안녕하십니까. 제주대학교의 변종헌입니다. 평화, 정의, 그리고 평화교육을 주제로 하는 세션에 자리를 같이 할 수 있어서 대단히 기쁘게 생각을 합니다. 사실 이 자리에 오게 된 정확한 배경은 잘 모르겠지만은 어떤 그 보이지 않는 손의 작용에 의해서 이 자리에 같이 하게 된 것 같아서 대단히 기쁘게 생각하고요. 특히 평화연구와 관련된 크롱 연구소에서 연구하시고 있는 교수님들과 같이 평화교육의 문제를 같이 이야기할 수 있는 기회가 돼서 저한테는 또 다른 기회가 되는 것 같습니다. 아까 이성호 박사님께서 평화연구, 평화교육, 또 평화운동의 차원에서 평화의 문제를 접근할 수 있는 틀을 말씀해 주셨는데요. 저 자신은 교육대학이기 때문에 아무래도 평화교육에 관한 관심이 많았고, 그래서 오늘 이 자리에서 평화교육에 관련된 몇 가지 아이디어를 같이 나누는 기회를 갖고자 합니다. 잘 아시는 것처럼 평화의 문제라고 하는 것은 대단히 복잡하고 어려운 난제라고 할 수 있습니다. 평화를 바라보는 시각도 다르고 평화를 규정하는 방식도 상이하고 또 그런 평화를 실현할 수 있는 방법에 있어서도 여러 가지 상이한 입장들이 있기 때문에 평화의 문제를 쉽게 해결하는 것은 대단히 어렵지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 다만 제가 평화와 관련된 여러 가지 개념들 가운데 특히 주목하고자 하는 것은 평화의 의미 속에 들어있는 조화 내지는 통합의 요소입니다. 평화라고 하는 것이 어떤 전쟁과 대비되는 또 갈등과 폭력을 없애는 쪽에 논의들이 많이 진행이 되고 있습니다만은 저 자신은 어떤 평화를 이룰 수 있는 보다 근원적인 접근 방법이 무엇일까? 그것은 아마도 사람의 변화, 더 나아가서 어떤 문화의 변화라고 하는 것이 굉장히 중요한 토대가 되어야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 사실 최근 제주 사회만 보더라도 여러 가지 갈등 사안들이 그대로 노정이 되고 있다고 생각을 하는데요. 지금 이제 그 회복기에 들어가 있다고 진단할 수 있는 해군 기지의 건설 문제도 그렇고 또 최근에 급격하게 부상하고 있는 예멘인들의 난민 신청 사안 같은 것들은 결국 제주라고 하는 지역사회 내에 또 다른 갈등의 양상을 낳게 될 수밖에 없고 뭐 그런 것들을 풀어나가는 것이 거창한 담론으로서의 평화를 이야기하는 것 못지않게 굉장히 중요하지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 그래서 우리의 생활 주변에서 실제적인 삶 속에서 이룰 수 있는 평화의 방식이 무엇일까 이런 것들이 제가 짧은 시간 안에 여러분들과 같이 나누고자 하는 생각입니다. 사실 말씀드렸던 것처럼 평화의 의미라고 하는 것을 조화나 통합의 관점에서 보는 시각은 뭐 인도에서도 마찬가지고 중국이나 한국의 문화권에서는 쉽게 확인할 수 있는 것으로 보입니다. 특히 중국이나 우리의 경우에는 평화라고 하는 것이 전쟁이 없는 평온한 상태뿐만 아니라 어떤 내적인 조화라고 하는 것을 의미상 담고 있다고 보고 있기 때문에 평화의 의미 속에는 조화라고 하는 것이 굉장히 핵심적이라고 생각을 합니다. 그런 맥락에서 저는 평화라고 하는 것이 인간과 인간을 둘러싼 것들 사이의 공존과 조화 또는 인간이 직면하게 되는 다양한 삶의 측면에서 여러 가지 관계들이 나타나게 되는데 그러한 관계 속에서 어떻게 공존과 조화를 이루어낼 것인가 이런 것들이 평화의 의미가 될 수 있다고 생각을 하고요. 그와 같은 의미로 평화를 받아들이게 된다면은 어떤 그 정치적, 경제적인 접근을 통한 해법보다는 어떤 인간의 변화, 인간 내부의 변화 내지는 사회문화적 차원에서의 접근이라고 하는 것이 보다 실효적이고 지속 가능한 대안이 될 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 이와 같은 아이디어가 확인된 것은 1980년대 후반에 있었던 유네스코 국제회의라고 생각을 합니다. 인간의 마음에 깃든 평화, 삶의 문화로서의 평화 또는 살아 움직이는 평화 이러한 말에서 볼 수 있듯이 평화라고 하는 것을 정치나 경제적 조처나 처방이 아닌 어떤 인간 내부로부터 발생하는 차원에서 접근하고 있다고 하는 것이 가장 큰 특징이라고 생각을 합니다. 그러다 보니까 뭐 인간의 의식이라든지 가치관이라든지 행위 양식, 습관이라고 하는 측면에서 평화를 규정하고 그러한 것들을 어떻게 변화시킬 수 있는가라고 하는 것이 유네스코가 제시한 평화 문화의 개념이 던지는 메시지라고 생각을 합니다. 결국 인간의 심성을 변화시킴으로써 평화를 실현하겠다라고 하는 것이 아마도 유네스코 평화 문화가 시사하는 바가 아닐까 생각을 합니다. 더더욱이 평화 문화 개념의 등장이라고 하는 것은 지속 가능하고 또 모든 사람들이 동의할 수 있는 평화의 토대라고 하는 것이 지적이고 윤리적인 토대에 기초해야 된다라고 하는 것을 명시했다라고 하는 점에서 큰 전환점을 마련한 게 아닌가 생각을 합니다. 문제는 이와 같은 평화 문화의 확산이라고 하는 것이 인간이 직면하고 있는 다양한 관계에서의 공존과 조화를 이루는 하나의 방법이라고 한다면 그런 것들이 실현할 수 있는 구체적 대안이 무엇일까? 아마도 그것은 다른 어떤 것보다도 교육, 특히 평화 교육이라고 하는 것이 그 해답이 될 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 뭐 이런 맥락에서 평화 교육을 위한 여러 가지 논의들, 해법들이 이루어져 왔습니다만 저는 이 자리에서 평화 교육의 구체적 사례를 이야기하거나 평화 교육의 방법을 재론하기보다는 평화 교육이라고 하는 것이 조금 전에 정의했던 그러한 평화에 맞추어 봤을 때 어떠한 점을 강조해야 될 것인가. 일종의 평화 문화를 실현할 수 있는, 평화 문화를 창출하고 확산할 수 있는 기본적인 전제 내지는 토대에 대해서 두 가지만 말씀을 드리고자 합니다. 하나는 소위 그 복합적 체계 사고라고 하는 것이 되는데요. 이 복합적 체계 사고라고 하는 것은 어떤 대상과 그것을 둘러싼 환경 그리고 환경을 이루고 있는 여러 가지 구성 요소들 사이의 복합적인 상호작용을 전체적인 측면에서 조망할 수 있는 것 이런 것들이 복합적 체계사라고 볼 수가 있습니다. 모두에 말씀드렸던 것처럼 인간이 살아가면서 굉장히 다양한 관계를 맺게 될 수밖에 없는데 그것은 나 자신을 포함해서 뭐 공동체가 될 수도 있고 다른 사람이 될 수도 있고 또 자연 생태계라고 하는 것이 그 관계의 대상이 될 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그러한 여러 가지 관계 속에서 어떠한 상호작용이 일어나고 있고 한쪽에서의 상호작용이라고 하는 것이 다른 쪽에서는 어떻게 영향을 주고 있고 그러한 영향이 어떻게 다시 대목임될 수 있는가 이런 것들을 총체적으로 볼 수 있는 시야를 갖는 것 이런 것들이 어떤 인간이 맺을 수 있는 관계의 복합성을 이해하는 굉장히 중요한 출발점이 될 수 있다고 보고요. 그런 것들이 가능하기 위해서는 소위 단순한 사고를 지향하고 좀 복합적인 체계 사고를 갖는 것 이것이 평화 문화를 뿌리내리는 데 있어서 굉장히 중요한 토대일 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 흔히 단순 사고라고 하는 것은 지금 뭐 여기만을 강조한다라든지 양자택일의 속성을 지니고 있는 데 비해서 복합적 체계 사고라고 하는 것은 과거, 현재, 미래를 관통해서 볼 수 있는 시야를 열어주고 또 관계사의 복합성과 상호작용을 총체적으로 볼 수 있는 시야를 열어준다라고 하는 측면에서 제가 말씀드렸던 어떤 평화에 대한 개념 정의 그리고 평화 문화의 확산을 위해서 굉장히 중요한 토대가 될 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 또 하나는 이와 같은 그 복합적 체계 사고의 터에서 도덕적 상상력을 발휘할 수 있게 해주는 것 이것이 평화 교육에 있어서 굉장히 중요한 강조점이 되어야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 인간은 상상력을 지닌 도덕적 동물이라고 말하기도 합니다. 도덕적 상상력이라고 하는 것은 인간이 어떤 주어진 상황 속에서 어떤 행동을 할 수 있을까를 생각을 하고 그 행동 가운데 하나를 선택했을 때 어떠한 결과가 나타날 수 있는가를 마음으로 그려볼 수 있는 능력이 도덕적 상상력입니다. 따라서 도덕적 상상력을 갖게 된다면은 다양한 사건이라든지 상황, 사람 그리고 상호작용을 서로 연관시켜서 개인적 경험을 재구성할 수 있게 됩니다. 결국 도덕적 상상력이라고 하는 것을 갖게 된다라고 하는 얘기는 개인들이 자기 자신의 생각이나 관점에 얽매이는 것이 아니고 그걸 벗어나서 나의 생각과 행동이 어떤 결과를 다른 사람들에게 가져올 수 있고 그것이 사회 전체적으로 어떠한 결과를 낳을 수 있는지를 생각한다라고 하는 것. 이것이 아마도 도덕적 상상력의 의의가 된다고 생각을 합니다. 결국 도덕적 상상력을 갖는다라고 하는 얘기는 자기 중심성에서 벗어나서 말씀드렸던 다양한 관계망을 인식할 수 있는 토대를 마련해 줄 수 있다라고 하는 측면에서 앞에서 말씀드렸던 복합적 체계 사고와 더불어 굉장히 중요한 어떤 전제 조건으로서의 의의가 있다고 생각을 합니다. 실제로 도덕적 상상력이라고 하는 것이 평화 문화에 기여할 수 있는 측면은 여러 가지 각도에서 논의가 될 수 있습니다. 즉 도덕적 상상력을 갖게 된다라고 하는 얘기는 갈등 또는 폭력이라고 하는 것이 일상화된 상황 속에서 그런 것들을 뛰어넘어서 불확실한 미지의 세계로 발을 내디딜 수 있게끔 만드는 어떤 능력이라고 하는 측면에서 우리가 늘상 부딪히고 마주할 수밖에 없는 폭력적 상황이라든지 갈등 상황이라고 하는 것을 비켜갈 수 있는 또는 극복할 수 있는 굉장히 중요한 토대가 될 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 갈등이라고 하는 것이 만연한 상황 속에서 그러한 갈등의 고리를 끊고 아직 존재하지 않은 미래, 더 나은 미래를 상상할 수 있는 능력을 발휘할 수 있게 해주는 것. 이것이 도덕적 상상력이 평화 문화의 창출에 시사하는 바가 아닐까 생각을 합니다. 평화 교육을 연구하는 사람들은 우리가 직면하는 폭력적 사태라고 하는 것이 새로운 방법을 생각할 수 없는 것 때문에 기인한다고 지적을 하기도 합니다. 결국 그 이야기는 우리가 마주하고 있는 커다란 폭력이나 작은 구조적 폭력이나 아니면 우리가 일상 접하게 되는 갈등 상황이라고 하는 것을 극복하기 위해서는 이전과는 다른 방식으로 보고 생각하는 것이 필요하다. 그것이 아마도 도덕적 상상력일 수 있을 것이다. 따라서 오늘날 우리가 직면하고 있는 갈등의 상황을 뛰어넘기 위해서는 도덕적 상상력을 자극할 수 있는 그리고 도덕적 상상력을 확대시킬 수 있는 평화교육이라고 하는 것이 복합적 체계사와 더불어서 강조되는 것. 이것이 아마도 우리가 일상에서 접하게 되는 갈등의 문제를 극복하고 평화 문화를 확산시키고 또 창출할 수 있는 굉장히 중요한 토대가 될 수 있고 평화교육의 중요한 자산이 될 수 있지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 네, 감사합니다.
So what we've been hearing, it doesn't necessarily seem that it all focuses on peace education, but if you're listening carefully, you can hear that everything that we've spoken about focuses on peace education if you realize who has to understand the peace. We've heard that peace has to be understood by religious scholars, policymakers, activists, politicians, artists, journalists, regular citizens, just the people, right? And so in this way, peace, because it's so complex and the outcomes in the future are so indeterminate, there are many different places that we can focus on this peace. And so peace education isn't just about what's learned in schools. It's not just about what's learned in think tanks, but it's also about how people construct an imagination of society. That's peace education includes the entire imagining of society and the values that undergird each culture. So then the question is, how does restorative justice contribute to this peace education? I think this is the important fine point that I want to put on it before we go into questions. The way that restorative justice, as Professor Kim described, the way that restorative justice is different is, as opposed to just seeking a possibility for punishment or retribution, you ask the questions, what harm has been done? What does it take to repair the harm? Who would be responsible and who can contribute to the repair of the harm? If we focus simply on personal relationships and harmony at the personal level, then restorative justice may cause us to miss some of the deeper cultural and structural violences that persist. So restorative justice works in a way that allows for what we call a critical consciousness, where people understand the relationship between the environment, the structures, the culture, and how that impacts individual relationships. It also allows, because if you ask how harm has been done, it causes us to look multiple generations in the past. And when we ask how it's going to be repaired, we have to consider multiple generations in the future. And so in the same way that we think about apologies as addressing a past, and some of the activism as addressing a past, things like the Madrasah project and the cultural values education are ways of thinking of generational strategies for a future. And so peace education happens at every level. There's individual, relational, organizational, structural, large-scale, national and international. But there's also addressing issues for the past 5 years, the past 10 years, the past generation, the past era, even a past age, and making strategies for 5 years, for 10 years, for a generation, for 50 years. Sometimes those strategies work immediately, but because the questions and the issues, as you've heard from each of the presenters, are very complex and indeterminate, we have to be comfortable with the unknowing, but living into a certain set of values that constantly keep us on track. How would we speak of those values? I like to speak of the values in this way. Peace will happen. Justice will happen when every individual and every group has full and fundamentally equitable access to the resources, relationships, opportunities, and testimonial authority needed to survive, thrive, and make full contribution. It's a lot, but it's a complex way of thinking about an approach to peace, an approach to justice, an approach to thinking about how we act into a future that allows all of us to survive, thrive, and make full contribution. I want to thank all of my panel for making great contributions, and now we can move into a question format. The first question I will propose to all our panel is, what did you hear from one of your colleagues on the panel that may have caused you to think more or even differently about some of your own remarks?
Use your microphone. Here or go to the...
Just press the microphone.
Yeah, as Dr. Hooker made remarks, it's a precious time for me to recognize how complex and the different understanding of the big term peace. I noticed that my institution is the Jeju Peace Institute, and we use the term peace in every way, like peace education, even peace industry, peace religion, peace tourism, and a peace forum. Our Jeju forum, before name was Jeju Peace Forum. Nowadays we change it to the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity. But I want to point out two major factors. I mean, I know the religious and historical kind of apology, but as I told you, I want to focusing on the scientific analysis, let's say statistical analysis. When I first studied the peace study in American education system, they teach me scientific philosophy first, which means falsifiability. We're supposed to be open being wrong, which means that's a scientific approach. My problem is when we think peace as a right or wrong, just or unjust, it's kind of black and white approach, which means automatically I assume my opinion or my position is absolutely correct or just, which means the other side or my opposition side is supposed to be wrong. That is pretty much a wrong beginning point in order to get some harmonious or whatever, the peaceful resolution or conclusions. That's what I want to point out. Let's move to the second point, which is related to the first one, the kind of fundamentalism. That's it. That is a fundamentalism. I mean, I'm absolutely correct and you're wrong. I mean, let me tell you, as I introduced the environmental topic these days, pretty much Korean society focusing on, emphasize the life with the environmental clarity, something like that. When that, also there is some fundamentalism out there. When the people says Mother Earth, that's a precious resource we have to protect. That's pretty much a totalitarian, similar with a totalitarian approach. Almost at the same time, they assume natural protective people is good. Or some people like polluter like me wasted some waste or some garbages. We automatically being some wrong side. That is a dangerous approach when we look at some social values. It goes to the same thing, like when we talk about North Korean nuclear issues or Chinese human rights issues. Every fundamentalist emphasizes the absolute values. We have to clear the nuclear first. I mean, before the nuclear, we have to resolve the North Korean human rights first. It's kind of black or white, or take it or leave it alone. That is kind of undesirable approach when we think about peace. That's why I try to move to back. The scientific approach is more or better to resolve this situation around the world. instead historical or religious or some other approaches. Thank you. I probably made some wrong statement, but yeah, thanks.
So, I really appreciated everyone's presentations, but especially Professor Byung-Jong Han's presentation and his emphasis on moral imagination, because it really suggests a lot in terms of how to heal and how to address the wounds from the past within the Jeju context and the case that I have been working on. I think in terms of restoring justice in the face of these mass atrocities, the element of empathizing with those who have been harmed by these wrongs is crucial, because unless you understand what effects you have caused, or what the society or what the state has caused to these individuals, it's really hard to fully understand their demands and the needs for future healing. So I really appreciated the emphasis on our ability to imagine and expand our moral foundations to others. Thanks.
Are we going in a row? Well, so what did I hear from my other colleagues? I was trying to think in terms of world peace. And when we have, such an incredible asymmetry of power between societies, nations, in our case, can we have peace, especially when it's defined as every individual or group having sort of equal access to opportunities and resources in order to flourish? Equitable access, right? Yeah, equitable access. And so when you have power and protectionism and groups trying to claim more and more piece of the pie, and the only way that that can be resolved is you equalize the power relations, or you extend the moral imagination that requires the group in power to engage in acts of restoration and justice, right? And so, is that possible? What will be the role of peace education? What kind of education will be required? Will institutions permit, a kind of upsetting of the apple cart when interests at the highest levels become threatened by that education for more equitable distribution? And then can scientific methods really contribute when you have raw emotions, egos, and other kinds of interests that are driving the analysis? So these are some of the things I'm thinking about as I'm listening to my colleagues. Very stimulating.
글쎄, 제가 느끼기에는 지금 후커 교수님 포함해서 세 분의 발표자님의 코멘트 자체가 평화의 문제나 평화 교육의 문제를 그대로 드러낼 수 있다라고 생각을 합니다. 바꿔 얘기하면은 평화에 대한 정의 자체 또는 강조점 자체가 다를 수밖에 없고, 또 평화를 실현하는 그 접근 방법이 있어서 차이를 노정할 수밖에 없다라고 하는 사실을 우리가 인정하는 것이 굉장히 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 다만 이러한 생각이라고 하는 것이 어떠한 평화의 정의가 타당하고 그것을 실현하기 위한 방법이 어떤 것이 더 바람직하냐라고 하는 문제는 다른 문제라고 생각을 합니다. 바꿔 얘기하면은 정치적, 경제적 측면에서의 어떤 평화 실현의 노력, 그리고 국가 사이의 차등을 극복할 수 있는 평화나 정의의 노력, 이런 것들도 동시에 중요할 수 있다. 다만 평화의 문제를 실현하기 위한 보다 장기적인 관점에서 그것이 지속 가능성을 담보하기 위해서는 동시에 사람의 변화를 이끌 수 있는 교육적 노력이 굉장히 중요할 수밖에 없는데, 사실은 대부분의 평화 논의에 있어서 교육 또는 평화교육이라고 하는 것은 대부분 후순위의 주제로 자리 잡고 있는 경우가 대부분이다라고 하는 점이죠. 따라서 현실적이고 실천적인 의미의 평화를 구현하기 위한 노력 이런 것들이 상당히 집중적인 그 관심이나 조명을 받을 수 있는 가능성이 많지만은 우리가 시야를 좀 넓게 보고 장기적인 관점에서 본다면은 사람의 변화를 꾀하기 위한 노력이 가장 중요하고 그런 것들이 적어도 평화를 둘러싼 갈등의 일부라도 해소할 수 있는 굉장히 중요한 일이 아닐까 하는 생각을 합니다. 그래서 중요한 것은 여러 가지 평화 실현의 해법이라고 하는 것, 저는 이제 평화의 어떤 일종의 문법이라고 볼 수도 있을 것 같은데요. 그런 것들이 다양하다라고 하는 것을 인정하고 그런 다양한 것 가운데 어떤 그 공통된 본질적 요소들을 모색해 나가는 것, 이게 중요하다는 생각을 하고요. 특히 이제 이성호 박사님께서 굉장히 그 정량적인 어프로치를 많이 하심에도 불구하고 막바지 하셨던 말씀 기억이 나는데 결국은 평화의 본질적인 문제, 그러니까 갈등 해결의 문제라고 하는 것에 천착하는 것, 이것이 중요하다는 지적을 해주셨던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 것들이 다양한 시각에서의 논의 속에 항상 그 염두에 둬야 될 기본적인 전제가 아닐까 하는 그런 생각이 같습니다.
Yes. I think that the idea of changing the people is important. We as people live our lives in stories. We live our lives in the form and the shape of stories, narratives. And so how we tell the story of the people is really important. How much of the history has to be healed and repaired so that we can tell a story of the people that doesn't drag some down and move some forward is very important. What the imagination, how do we craft a story, not a shared story about the future? This is, I think, a really important distinction. It's not to tell a shared story about the future, but to tell a story of a shared future. Can you hear the distinction? It's not that we have to all agree on the future that we're living into. We have to agree that there's space enough for all of us to survive and thrive in the future. And so not a shared story of the future, but a story of a shared future.
That's reality.
Well, so this is where my challenge comes with the scientific method, because science generally can describe what happened in the past, but it doesn't necessarily, there's often a distinction, or there can be disruption to what happens in the future. And in fact, in order for us to move to peace, there almost has to be, there's no current trajectory that we can be on today and continue that somehow arrives at a peace that we want. There's going to have to be a discontinuity of some sort. It may come through the religious scholars. It may come when people feel whole and healthy enough because of that their past harms have been addressed. It may well come from being developing the values of a new moral imagination. But there's going to be a discontinuity that takes us off of the current trajectory, because the current trajectory clearly doesn't move us towards a peace. We have about 18 minutes left. You're going to way back in?
If you allow me, can I make it short?
Short. Yeah.
That's technically, we call it ideology. Ideology means how can we interpret our past history, and we can interpret the current status of where we are, and we set the goal where we're supposed to go in the future, and the last part, how to get there. But if everybody agreed on that, that's a peaceful society. Then the problem of the source of conflict is the people don't agree on each and every major 3 or 4 parts. Let's see. When I that example, I told you Japanese interpreted the past in different ways. with the Koreans. That's why they look at the same event, atomic bomb dropped on the Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but they emphasize their victimization. Yeah, that's ideology. That's the problem of peace. Everybody have a different ideology in terms of technical definition of ideology, how we can interpret the past, something like that. Yeah, thanks.
So, on this, I want to jump on the science bandwagon with Dr. Yi, and this is something we do in our Madrasah project, is we actually have a narrative that is shared of the past that is being now told to us by science as a kind of new creation story or a new creation myth. And in that story, we all have the same past. But what you have to do is you have to zoom out from the particulars, go into a big picture mode. It's called big history. There's actually a field. And you look at the history of the cosmos, not just human beings, through thresholds of increasing complexity. The universe unfolding. So you have the beginning of the universe. Science is telling a story about that. You have the formation of the first stars. Then you have the creation of the elements. Then you have the solar system and life. And then you have the evolution of life. And even the evolution of life has a story where it moves from stage to stage until the cognitive revolution, and then civilization, and then religions, and now what some are calling the Anthropocene, which is a geologic period in which the imprint of human activity is being recorded in the rocks. And once we look at this trajectory, we see we're moving, at least in our micro environment of the Earth, into stages of increasing complexity, the latest of which is the globally networked planet at light speed. And so history clearly has an arrow from that perspective. And it shows we all came from stars, and we are all in the process of becoming and moving into something. That's a story. That's a story we tell our Madrasah students. And that's a story that is the same for people in Korea, as it is for Japan, as it is for China, as it is for India, as it is for the United States. Now, theologically, we have to do a lot of work to figure out how we relate to that story and what the sources of knowledge are, how we know what is real. So there are all kinds of philosophical questions, but at least we can come together for a conversation, a shared conversation that is now being enabled by natural science and natural history that may have also contributions to make in peace education.
So what you all just noticed was there was a conversation that went from astrophysics to microbiology and every place in between, including history, theology, anthropology, political science, and moral philosophy, all of which has to do with peace education, which means that whatever question you have also must have to do with peace education. And so we want to invite whatever questions you might have to participate in the conversation in the last 15 minutes. And they can come from almost any direction because it's all about peace education and restorative justice. That's what we've learned so far today. So I wonder if there are any of you who might have questions that you would like us to address. Okay. There's a mic coming.
Hello, I'm a grade 10 student in NLCS Jeju, and I'm currently an intern at the Jeju Peace Institute. I want to ask a question to Professor David Hooker and Professor Mahan Marzer. I'm sorry if I get your name wrong. You mentioned the definition of peace and how world peace may not be able to result due to the definition. So do you think it is a responsibility for countries with that kind of power to give other countries the right as well? Do you think they should be the ones who share the resources in order to reach peace?
Yes. Absolutely. The question is how to do that without giving a lot of control and power to tyrants, right? And so you have to engage in a kind of oppression and tyranny in order to prevent possible additional tyranny. And this is the exact argument made for the dropping of the atomic bomb. If it's not dropped, then even more lives will be lost because of the continuing war that is simply, we can see no end in sight to it, right? So these are calculations that nations make. But there is clearly that arc, the trajectory that I was talking about. And that is moving towards a more interconnected, a more global, a more shared future. And when we get politicians and we get leaders who try to take us back, they try to build walls, and they try and keep people separate, I think that that takes the conversation back, not forward. And that is highly irresponsible and not in line with our dream of world peace.
There's a expression in the United States that sometimes people say, strong fences make good neighbors. When they're saying that, what they're saying is that divisions and borders are what allow people to get along well. That saying emerged during a time when people were coming to the United States and fencing out and moving out the people who already lived there. And so people have lived, the indigenous people of the land were being excluded from their land. There was a entire genocide happening, and then we have these expressions. Some of the expressions that we have that have been built into the way that we live cause us to act and think in ways that don't support what our ultimate goal is. If your neighbors are hungry or thirsty or tired, and you have extra food and water and places for rest, and you don't share it, you might have more than enough. You might have abundance, but you will never also have peace. And so we have to, at some point, decide how we prioritize peace. And if we prioritize peace, then excess would certainly have to be one of the first things that we'd give up. And so some of those nations that operate with excess are going to have to, at some point, reprioritize peace over excess. So thank you.
While they're thinking of, go ahead. I was going to add a quick point.
Okay.
Go ahead.
좋은 발표 잘 들었습니다. 저는 변종원 교수님과 이성우 박사님께 질문드리고 싶습니다. 먼저 이성우 박사님께서는 한국 평화연구가 지나치게 남북관계에만 초점을 두고 있다라고 말씀하셨는데요. 그렇다면 앞으로 한국 학계 그리고 보다 넓게는 한국 사회가 좀 더 주목해야 할 중요한 평화연구의 이슈가 무엇이 있는지 좀 더 말씀해 주시면 좋겠습니다. 그리고 변종원 교수님께서 말씀하신 도덕적 상상력과 복합적 체계 사고를 강조한 평화교육에 대해 되게 인상 깊게 들었는데요. 변 교수님께서 실제로 이를 적용하신 사례나 혹은 경험이 있다면 좀 더 구체적으로 어떻게 이게 교육에 도입이 됐는지 이야기를 해주시면 좋겠습니다.
When I talk about Korean peace studies, the North Korean case is pretty much kind of focusing on some case studies. The problem of a case study is the selection bias comes with. Whenever they made some statement, they always pick up the case which he could support for his own statement. That's another problem. And in a sense that I wanted to move back to the scientific, accumulated the case. A large number of cases brings you more objectivity instead of subjectivity. And according to the Dr. Mirza's perspective, I also have some problem with the religious, no offense, but religious approaches. When I heard about your statement, I found out some similarity with the Buddhist idea. Never increase, never decrease. It's kind of Buddhist finding wisdom. From the highest point of view, there is no change. Let's say from the parents' perspective, your daughter and son fighting for money, but probably your son is kind of stronger, therefore he can take more money. But from the parents' perspective, it's the same family money, which means the religious wisdom taught, you change yourself first, then bring the peace will comes to you. That is, in some sense, it's kind of reasonable lessons, probably bring you peace. But the problem when you talk about social sciences, we have to deal with not the saint. We have to deal with ordinary people. As you said, everybody wants more. Even in the abundant society, there is another term, like not absolute gain, relative gain. They always take care of who gets more than what I get. That is another source of conflict. In the sense that I want to focusing on, move back to the, let's say, more cases and analyze it with some revival methods like statistics or even some game theoretical, or we call it formal logic, whatever it is. I mean, everybody can recycle it, and we call it reliability. That's what I learned from American peace studies. I want to apply that kind of thing on whatever it is. I have no problem with North Korean cases. Whenever we analyze North Korean cases, matter of methodology. Thank you. Not a matter of a topic.
평화 문화를 창출하고 확산하기 위한 두 가지 전제를 말씀을 드렸는데요. 사실 그 복합적 체계 사고나 도덕적 상상력이라고 하는 것이 꼭 평화 교육의 전제가 되어야 된다는 것은 아니라고 생각을 합니다. 이제 평화 교육의 어떤 범위를 정할 때 주변 개념과의 어떤 관계 같은 것도 늘 논란이 됩니다. 예를 들어서 뭐 평화 교육과 뭐 시민 교육 이런 것들이 논란이 될 수 있다고 보여지는데요. 그럼에도 불구하고 그것이 어떤 영역이 됐든 뭐 두 가지의 가치가 있다라고 생각을 합니다. 다만 복합적 체계 사고나 도덕적 상상력을 어떻게 길러줄 수 있느냐라고 하는 것이 굉장히 중요한 관건으로 보입니다. 뭐 저희 경우에는 그 직접적으로 이런 것들을 강조하기보다는 그런 복합적 체계 사고의 중요성을 뭐 자극하거나 확인시켜 줄 수 있는 여러 가지 노력들을 하고 있는데요. 그 중에 하나가 이러한 그 중요성을 다룬 뭐 사례 같은 것들을 접하는 것이 하나의 예가 될 수 있다고 생각합니다. 예를 들어서 그 뭐 러닝 페이블이라고 뭐 그 학습 우화라고 하는 텍스트 같은 것들이 아마도 중요한 소재가 될 수 있다고 보여지는데요. 데이비드 허진슨 같은 경우에 그 제목이 The Tip of the Iceberg라고 하는 책인데요. 국내에는 그 펭귄의 계약으로 번역이 되어 있습니다. 그래서 자그마한 소책자이지만은 그러한 텍스트를 접할 수 있다면은 아마도 기존과는 다른 관점에서 복합적 체계 사고를 할 수 있는 좀 더 여유를 갖게 될 수 있지 않을까 하는 생각을 해보게 되고요. 또 특히 이제 도덕적 상상력의 경우에는 아까 후커 교수님도 사람의 삶이라고 하는 것이 이야기다라고 하는 말씀을 하셨는데 우리가 다른 사람 이야기에 관심을 갖는 것도 좋은데 모든 사람들 이야기에 관심을 가질 수가 없고 그런 것들을 간접적으로 경험할 수 있는 여러 가지 채널들은 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그 중에 하나가 뭐 일종의 그 문학 작품 속의 내용을 확인하는 것들이라고 볼 수 있는데 이런 것들을 일컬어서 도덕 철학을 하는 사람들 입장에서는 내러티브 이미지네이션이라고 하는 말을 씁니다. 그 내러티브적 상상력이라고 얘기를 하는데요. 뭐 그런 것들은 결국 개인이 어떤 사람이 텍스트 속에 그 문학 작품 속에 들어있는 인물의 위치가 되어 보면서 그들의 생각과 행동을 나름대로 판단하고 또 새로운 가능성을 모색해 본다는 측면에서 도덕적 상상력을 자극할 수 있는 굉장히 중요한 토대라고 지적을 합니다. 바꿔 얘기하면은 다른 사람이 이야기에 대한 지적인 독자가 되는 것 이런 것들을 너스바움 같은 경우는 강조를 합니다. 그래서 그런 것들이 하나의 방법이 될 수 있을 것 같다는 생각을 하고요. 또 하나는 이 도덕적 상상력을 자극하기 위한 중요한 토대로 많은 사람들이 지적하는 것이 일종의 관점 택하기, 관점 채택입니다. 그래서 퍼스펙티브 테이킹이라고 하는 표현을 쓰는데요. 다른 사람의 입장을 취해보는 거죠. 그럼으로써 다른 사람이 왜 이런 생각을 갖게 됐고 이런 행동을 하게 됐는지 내가 그런 상황이라고 한다면 어떤 생각과 행동을 할 것인지 이런 것들을 스스로 느껴보고 또 그런 것들을 다른 사람과 비교하고 논의해보는 것 이런 것들이 일종의 도덕적 상상력을 자극할 수 있는 굉장히 중요한 출발이라고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 사실은 상상력을 갖고 또 복합적 체계사고를 갖는다라고 하는 것이 하나의 명제일 수 있다라고 한다면 그런 것들을 어떻게 함양할 수 있는가라고 하는 것을 개발하는 노력 이런 것들이 굉장히 중요한데 뭐 그런 것들에 대한 연구나 논의가 많이 이루어지고 있고 지금 말씀드린 것들은 뭐 제가 의존하고 있는 굉장히 기초적인 방법들이 아닐까 하는 생각을 갖습니다. 또 하나 부가해서 말씀을 드리면은 그 이제 복합적 체계사와 관련해서 그 어빈 라즐로라고 하는 체계 철학자는 비전 2020이라고 하는 책에서 오늘날 인류가 직면한 4가지 핵심적인 테마를 이야기를 합니다. 그 종교, 과학, 예술, 그리고 마지막에 교육입니다. 그래서 4가지 종교와 과학과 예술과 교육의 홀리 얼라이언스를 얘기를 합니다. 신성 동맹이죠. 그래서 이런 4가지 범주가 변화되지 않는 한 평화라고 하는 것은 요원할 수 있다고 하는 메시지를 던집니다. 그게 21세기 전환기에 체계 철학자인 어빈 라즐로가 했던 얘기입니다. 저도 그 얘기를 이렇게 경청을 하는데요. 그런 맥락에서 본다면은 적어도 조금 전에 말씀드렸던 교육의 영역에 있어서는 그런 체계 사고의 중요성을 알고 확산하는 것 이런 것들이 굉장히 고무적이라고 보여지는데 그나마 다행인 것은 최근에 그와 같은 논의가 상당히 저변이 넓어지고 있고 일반화되고 있다. 따라서 그런 것들을 어떻게 우리가 접하는 대상이나 현상과 적용시켜서 볼 수 있느냐 그런 능력을 키워주는 쪽으로 이제 어떤 그 교육이나 연구의 노력이 좀 확산됐으면 좋겠다는 그런 개인적인 생각을 가져옵니다. 네, 고맙습니다.
Just very quickly, because an objection was raised, I'm not sure. I want to make sure that it is understood that our project is engaging in exactly the kind of complexity in order to stimulate the moral and ethical imagination that Dr. Bjorn describes. So part of the way in which we study our texts is we take different perspectives from different schools of thought within the tradition. So our Madrasah students belong to one school. And sometimes there's a tendency to dismiss another school as not just wrong, but unreasonable. And what we try and do is we work with our students in order to say, you can still think it's wrong. We're not saying you have to decide what's right or wrong, or change what you think is right or wrong. But at least can you see the position of another as at least intelligible, if not also just as intelligent? And that's a very important exercise that I think is very useful along the lines of what you were saying. And this summer we have a program in Nepal where I'm flying to next, in the title of which we have, it's called Theology and Contingency, and the subtitle has within it Moral Imagination. So I very much appreciate what is being said here. And this is not at all to deny statistics.
We need statistics, but we also need imagination. We need complex thinking. Okay.
And so we need statistics, we need history, we need theology, we need complex moral imagination, we need more narratives and perspective taking, and honestly, we would need more time to continue the conversation, but our time is finished, so we want to thank you all very much for participating with us this afternoon. All right.